Most people think they're leaving their kids a retirement account. In reality, what they're actually leaving them is a doozy of a tax bill. Today, I'm going to show you how to keep more of that money in your family and less to the IRS. I find that the majority of folks have the largest concentration of their assets in tax-deferred accounts like 401ks, 403bs, and IRAs. That's because they did such a good job of listening to the advice of the 80s to put more money in your 401k and take advantage of that triple compounding. The downside to that is because you've deferred the tax has to be paid at some point. So either you are paying it or your beneficiaries are. So let me first say that this is not meant to be tax advice. I am not a CPA, and we do recommend that you consult with your tax professional regarding your specific situation. That said, inherited IRA laws changed in 2019 due to the Secure Act. This largely eliminated stretch IRAs for non-spouse beneficiaries, meaning your kids, maybe your dog, or that guy you're really fond of at the gas station, just not your spouse. Now they require that the full value of the inherited IRA be withdrawn over a 10-year period, meaning it has to be taken out by the end of 10 years. So in most cases, you don't have to take a specific amount each year. It really is, as long as it's withdrawn by the end of the 10th year upon the death, then you're covering the laws. But I will say, though, however, there's a caveat to that if the person you inherited it from was already taking their required minimum distribution, then you will be required to take a minimum amount, which is considered an RMD, each year, and then by the end of the 10th, you still have to take the full value out. Now, there's one thing I think it's important for you to understand. When it comes to the government, the folks there are pretty smart. They know that it's likely that when your kids inherit that 401k or IRA nest egg that you've worked so hard to build, that it will likely be at the peak earning years for your kids. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that they will likely be in a higher tax bracket because they're earning a good amount. Your kids can no longer stretch those distributions out over their lifespan, and they will need to take that full amount out and pay the tax over 10 years. To be clear, the new rule is your kids can no longer stretch those distributions out over their lifespan. They're required to deplete the full account and pay the tax by the end of the 10th year. This means that your kids will add whatever they have to take out to their income for that year, which could very well push them into a higher tax bracket. Thanks a lot, Mom and Dad. Okay, so let me give you an example to help you better understand the situation. If your son or daughter inherits $500,000 from you, and for ease of math, assuming no growth, takes about $50,000 out over the next 10 years, they will be adding $50,000 to their taxable income each year. Okay, with me so far? So each year they're going to take $50,000 out, which will then add to their taxable income and could push them into a higher tax bracket for each year. So if they're at the top of the 24% tax bracket, by taking that additional money, that could push them into the 32% tax bracket, requiring them to pay an extra 8% of anything that's above the threshold. So if they're at the top of the 24% tax bracket, by taking that additional $50,000, that could push them into the 32% tax bracket, requiring them to pay an extra 8% on anything above that threshold. Okay, another important detail. I'm going to hit the button every time there's an important detail. Now, I already mentioned it, but I'm going to say it again. If you inherit money from your, say, parent that is already above the age for the required minimum distribution, so at this point it's 73, and they are receiving distributions, then you are required to take a minimum amount out each year. You can't just wait a few years and then deplete like you can if they weren't receiving that RMD. There was some ambiguity around this, and the IRS has been a little lenient around assessing that penalty the last few years. However, they're getting pretty firm with assessing that going forward, and if you miss taking a required minimum distribution, then you would be assessed a 25% tax penalty. And you may be wondering, why are they penalizing you for not taking money that is for you? Well, it goes back to, again, they want their tax dollars. The government is pretty smart. Now, knowing that it's neither good nor bad, it just is what it is. So you need to have a strategy and a guide to help you navigate the best way to get through that. Okay. Now on to the strategy. This is the fun part. Take out your notepads. This is one of the ways the wealthiest Americans continue to perpetuate their wealth. Consider this. What if you took out 10% of your IRA balance, or maybe even 5% each year, to pay a premium for life insurance that provided the same or even more money than your kids were planning to receive from your IRA balances? You are spreading the taxes out each year by taking a small amount out and then leveraging that up for an income tax-free death benefit. So essentially, you are spreading out the taxes by taking a small amount out each year and leveraging that up to an income tax-free death benefit for your kids. Remember, you love your kids. This is a nice thing for you to do for your kids. Now you can spend and enjoy more of your hard-earned money knowing that your kids will receive the life insurance in a much more tax-efficient manner. If they would have received the full IRA balance like you originally planned, then they would have to send 20 to 30% to the government for taxes. If you do it the way that I'm suggesting you do it, the life insurance payout is income tax-free. Now, of course, they're still going to get some of your IRAs, but at least you've helped to leverage up some tax-free to help offset some of the taxes. Now, the best way to do this if you're married is to take out what we call a survivorship or second to die life insurance policy. So basically, you and your spouse have a joint policy in which you and your spouse are both insured, and the way it works is that it essentially pays out upon the second death. So nothing is paid out when the first spouse dies. When the second, then it pays out the income tax-free death benefit to your children. Structuring it this way usually provides a higher death benefit per dollar, depending on your age and health, of course, and the difference in age between the two of you. To illustrate this, I have a story. I have a couple that I've worked with for about 20 years now. About 10 years ago, we sat down for a review. The husband had just retired. He was a physician. They have 4 kids. They had saved well and at the time had over $2 million in assets, so their kids were going to do pretty well either way. They were definitely going to receive some inheritance. That isn't even counting their beautiful home. So there we were planning, and I asked them, is it important to you that you leave some money to your kids? They said yes, knowing that they weren't going to spend through all their assets and that their kids would get whatever's left and also their house. I said, okay, but what if you could pass some of your money to your kids in a more tax-efficient way? My job is to get folks to start thinking about the future, and they will have to take money for their RMDs. And then I said, what are you going to do with all this money? Then I explained the strategy and how this will allow them to spend and enjoy more of their money knowing that their kids will get the life insurance. So I said that, and at first, the husband was resistant, saying, well, yeah, but they're going to get plenty of money anyway. But his wife, kudos to her, spoke up with authority and said, we need to do this. So up until now, she rarely spoke up when we did reviews, but I could always tell that she was really following things, so it was pretty cool to see her speak up at this point for her kids. Now, ultimately, they decided to purchase a second to die life insurance policy for $1 million death benefit, which means that each of their kids would be guaranteed $250,000 from the insurance company, income tax free. Now think about this. It's pretty cool that they took the time to understand the strategy and consider it, and now their kids are going to get $250,000 income tax free from a life insurance policy. They took my advice. And not all advisors will have these tough conversations. It's not an easy conversation to have. So to give you more insight into the numbers, for this couple at their age and health in their mid-60s, the premium was going to be $16,000 for 20 years. So $16,000 a year for 20 years. Whoa, now that might sound like a lot, $16,000, that's my cruise budget. But when you consider over the course of 20 years, they would be putting in a total of $320,000. That $1 million death benefit is more than 3 times what they put in, and remember, would be received income tax free. There are actually different ways to structure these policies regarding the length of time you pay the premium. This couple chose to go with a 20-pay structure. Remember, they're going to be paying an annual premium for 20 years. And by the way, this was before the Secure Act of 2019, when the stretch IRA for non-spouse beneficiaries went away. I can tell you that they are even happier that they decided to take advantage of this strategy and, in fact, wish they had done more. When I say make a plan now, the reason is because of things like this. You never know when there are going to be legislative changes, policy changes, and you have to take advantage with what's right in front of you. Get while the getting's good, because more often than not, it's a change that won't necessarily be favorable for you. Look, you've worked your whole life to save money, raise your family, build an inheritance, and leave as much as you can for posterity. The bottom line is the IRS wants a piece of it. So after today, I hope you take to heart the importance of having a plan laid out by a professional. If you do, I feel very strongly that you will be glad that you did. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel if you want to hear more like this. And remember, peace of mind is something you build on purpose.
We want to help be your guide along the way about how to, access your money and the best places to get it with the ups and downs. And we want to help you to take advantage of those different market cycles. So if that's what you're looking for, please reach out to us.